Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. It is a busy day. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was mocked online yesterday after a GOP lawmaker floated a theory in a heated hearing about why Kamala Harris chose him as her vice president. We have the highlights in today's show. Former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice is calling on President Trump to, quote, take care of Iran for good. The two remaining soldiers killed in an Iranian drone strike in Kuwait on Sunday were also identified yesterday by the Pentagon. United Airlines has introduced a tough new rule change to battle a blood-boiling passenger pet peeve. If you've traveled lately, you probably know what I'm talking about. And a proposal to let South Carolina taxpayers take advantage of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act's, the tax cuts for 1 year is advancing in the South Carolina House of Representatives. We have the latest on that as well.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Sometimes the most memorable moments in Washington don't come from a prepared speech or a carefully crafted policy argument. Sometimes they come from an exchange in a congressional hearing, a few lines back and forth that suddenly light up social media and has everybody talking. That's the case from yesterday. It happened during a House Oversight Committee hearing. Texas Congressman Pat Fallon, he's a Republican from the Dallas area, he was questioning Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Now, Walz, of course, has become a national figure over the past few years, particularly after being selected as Kamala Harris's running mate in their failed attempt in the 2024 presidential campaign. So there's already a lot of political history wrapped up in Tim Walz. The hearing itself was focused on government fraud and oversight, one of those long, sometimes technical hearings where lawmakers question witnesses about spending, accountability, and where tax dollars are going. And look, there's a lot of questions about what happened in Minnesota. Billions of dollars gone. But Representative Fallon took his time as he was questioning the governor. He turned the conversation into a slightly different direction than expected. He started by referencing something that's been talked about in political circles for years, the way presidential candidates choose their running mates. Fallon said that back in 2008, when Barack Obama was choosing his vice president, he supposedly had three criteria. According to Fallon, Obama wanted someone who wasn't as smart as him, had less talent and charisma, and wouldn't outshine him politically. And Fallon said that's why Obama chose Joe Biden. Here's the exchange.
We've made historic progress, but we're not done yet. And then just 3.5 months later, on January 5th, you dropped out. I got to ask you why. I mean, were you tired of making historic progress?
No, Congressman, I think I've done the job for 2 terms, and I said talking with my family, and I said I want to focus on doing the job, not running.
Didn't have anything to do with this epic, historic, awful fraud?
It has everything to do with trying to do the job right for Minnesota.
The facts are your leadership, and really your lack of leadership, has been responsible for one of the largest ripoffs of the American taxpayer in our history. And you traded, I believe, political expediency, the currency of political expediency, for your integrity. And, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you know this, but it's been widely reported that in 2008, when Barack Obama was choosing his vice presidential candidate, he had three criteria. He wanted to make sure he picked somebody that wasn't as smart as him and had less talent and charisma and couldn't possibly outshine him, so he picked Joe Biden. And then Joe Biden in 2020 used the exact same criteria. He wanted to make sure he picked somebody who wasn't as smart as him, had less talent and charisma, and wouldn't outshine him, and he picked Kamala Harris. And then in 2024, Governor, I think it's very evident why Kamala Harris picked you. The talent pool,
I wouldn't
Mr.
know,
Chairman,
Congressman.
Mr. Chairman, the talent pool isn't just shallow, brother. We have hit the shore, and I yield back.
Quite the analogy, isn't it? In other words, Fallon was suggesting that the same pattern continued, that each candidate picked someone who wouldn't overshadow them. Now Walz's reaction was kind of interesting. Did you hear him kind of laughing there at the end? He didn't fire back. He didn't even argue. He didn't get visibly upset. Instead, he just laughed. He just kind of cackled. And he responded simply, "I wouldn't know, Congressman." Fallon had one more remark before wrapping up his time there when he said, the talent pool isn't just shallow, we have hit the shore. And, that would be kind of demeaning, wouldn't it? If you realize that you're at the bottom of the barrel. Obama chose Biden because Biden was weaker. And, of course, Biden chose someone even weaker in Kamala Harris. And we all know what kind of candidate she was. And now, Tim Walz. Now, within minutes of that exchange, the clip started circulating online. If you spend any time on political social media, you know exactly how that works. A short clip from a hearing, 30 seconds or so, gets pulled out and posted. Suddenly, it is everywhere, and that's what Tim Walz found yesterday. Several conservative commentators quickly shared the moment. One political influencer posted that Walz had been scorched. Another called it one of the most memorable exchanges in recent political hearings. And Brandon Straka, who founded the hashtag walkaway movement, also posted a clip calling attention to Fallon's remarks. Of course, reactions depend on where you sit politically. Some people thought it was a sharp political jab, the kind of quick-witted moment that plays well online. Others saw it as typical Washington political theater, a bit of showmanship during a hearing that was supposed to focus on government oversight. And that's probably closer to the truth, because congressional hearings often serve two purposes at the same time. On the one hand, they're part of the legislative oversight process, lawmakers questioning witnesses, investigating how government programs are operating, and examining how taxpayer money is being spent. And boy, do we need somebody looking at how billions of dollars disappeared in the Somalia communities of Minneapolis. But at the same time, they're also public events. Members of Congress know the cameras are rolling. They know it's their time to get one of these clips, and that's all they want is a short clip that goes viral, and suddenly it's everywhere. And that's what Representative Fallon found out yesterday. Members of Congress know this will work. They know clips will circulate online. They know that sometimes a well-delivered line can reach millions of people in just a matter of hours. So moments like this, whether you love them or hate them, are very much part of modern political communication in the world of social media. And the context behind this exchange is also worth remembering. Tim Walz became a national political figure after Kamala Harris selected him as her running mate during the 2024 presidential campaign. There's been a lot of speculation at the time about who Harris might choose. One of the names frequently mentioned was Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. But according to reporting and books that have come out since the election, Harris ultimately made the decision based largely on her own instincts. In fact, one book on the 2024 election says Harris went with her gut and believed Walz was simply the better fit for the campaign. Her staff reportedly supported the decision as well. That choice obviously placed Walz on a national stage, and with that comes scrutiny from both parties. And look, you may recall, it didn't take him long to introduce himself to the American people, and the American people saw just how goofy he is. So when he appears in a congressional hearing now, the questions aren't just about Minnesota policy or state governance. They also reflect the broader national political conversation and how he just made a complete idiot of himself in the 2024 election. That's exactly what we saw in that exchange in the U.S. House. A hearing about oversight, a moment of political sparring, and then a clip that spreads across social media within minutes. And that's Washington. That's what we have in Washington in 2026. Sometimes it's serious policy discussion, sometimes it's partisan debate, and sometimes it's a few seconds of back and forth that ends up becoming the headline of the day. And if you watch the clip, you probably noticed something else too. Walz did not escalate the moment. He laughed, gave a quick answer, and he tried to let the exchange end right there rather than trying to keep it alive, which is often, I guess, probably the smart move in Washington, because in today's media environment, sometimes the moment itself becomes bigger than the hearing that produced it, and that's exactly what happened. We got this viral clip and a reminder that in modern politics, the camera's always rolling. So maybe Tim Walz did the right thing. Maybe he's a little bit smarter than we thought he was, because he probably did handle that situation in the best way that he could by simply not responding, not making it more of a viral moment. Look, everybody knows Tim Walz was in over his head running for vice president. Everybody knows now that he was in over his head running for governor and serving, for the last 8 years. Tim Walz is done politically. He's embarrassed himself. He's embarrassed his state. Now all he has to hope for is that he can get out of this without being charged with some type of fraud. And that may be tougher than he thinks. GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get you 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900. The 2 other soldiers killed in the Iranian drone strike in Kuwait on Sunday were identified by the Pentagon. Major Jeffrey O'Brien, 45, of Indianola, Iowa, was confirmed dead from the direct hit from an Iranian kamikaze drone while operating out of in a triple-wide trailer, according to the press release from the War Department. Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marzan, 54, of Sacramento, California, is believed to be deceased as well. Medical examiner will certify the identification. In total, 6 U.S. service members with the Army Reserve's 103rd Sustainment Command were all killed in the Sunday Iranian drone attack. And we continue to keep these families in our prayers. Let's talk about a development, too, this week that most Americans probably didn't hear much about. It's one of the most significant naval combat events in modern history, though. According to a Pentagon briefing yesterday, a U.S. Navy submarine sank an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean using one of the most powerful torpedoes in the American arsenal. The strike happened off the southern coast of Sri Lanka. And according to War Secretary Pete Hegseth, it marks something that hasn't happened in a very long time. A submarine-launched torpedo sinking an enemy warship. In fact, officials say it's the first time the United States has done this in modern combat since World War II. Now think about that for a moment. Submarines are one of the most powerful, most secretive tools that the U.S. military has. But most of what they do, you never hear about. Their job is to stay invisible, patrol the oceans quietly, to monitor adversaries, and if necessary, to strike without warning. And that's what we saw with this. That appears to be exactly what happened here. The weapon used in the attack was called the Mark 48 Advanced Capability Torpedo. It's one of the most lethal anti-ship weapons the U.S. Navy possesses. It isn't a missile that explodes when it hits the side of a ship. It works differently, according to the Pentagon. Naval experts explain that the Mark 48 detonates underneath the hull of the ship. When it explodes beneath the vessel, it creates a massive vapor bubble. That bubble collapses with tremendous force, and the result is something sailors call breaking the ship's back. And that's what we saw. The explosion lifted the vessel out of the water, then the hull fractures and splits. Ships hit with this often sink within minutes. Now, according to defense analysts, that's exactly what happened to the Iranian warship Iris Dena. It was reportedly Iran's newest frigate, equipped with missiles, torpedoes, and other heavy weapons. Sri Lankan authorities say the vessel issued a distress call shortly after 5 a.m. local time, reporting an explosion. Within minutes, the ship was going down. Bodies of Iranian sailors were later recovered near the southern port of Sea of Gal. Now, here's the other detail that caught the attention of military experts. The cost of the weapon used. A single Mark 48 torpedo costs roughly, you want to guess? You have a guess? Text me your guess before I tell you. Text me or email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can leave me a message on the MyPillow message line as well, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. How much does it cost? I'm going to give you a few minutes to text that in. When you're dealing with naval warfare, of course, cost isn't the main consideration. Dominance is, getting your job done. Submarine warfare has always been about sending a message, and analysts say the message in this case was very clear. The United States can strike Iranian naval forces anywhere in the world's oceans, even in the international waters, even when they think they're safe. Former submarine commander and defense analyst Thomas Shugart put it this way. He said the strike shows the gloves really are off, and the U.S. is in this to win. And if you step back and you look at the broader strategic picture here, that may be the real story, because this isn't just about one ship. It's about demonstrating American naval superiority like we haven't seen in quite some time. The United States operates the most advanced submarine fleet on Earth. These vessels are nuclear powered. That means they can stay underwater for months at a time. They can travel at high speed without surfacing, and they carry some of the most sophisticated sensors and weapons ever built. You got to be proud of what we have here. By contrast, Iran's submarine fleet, to the extent that it's operational, is largely based on older diesel-electric technology. Some of those submarines are decades old. They have limited endurance and far less sophisticated detection systems. In other words, it's not even an even playing field. Military analysts say a U.S. submarine hunting an Iranian surface vessel would have a massive advantage. In fact, one expert said sinking a ship like this would not be considered a difficult mission for an American attack submarine. Still, you got to consider the historic significance of the strike, and it's hard to ignore. There are only a handful of modern examples where submarines have sunk large warships with torpedoes. One of the most famous happened during the 1982 Falklands War. That's when the British nuclear submarine HMS Conqueror sank the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano. That event dramatically changed the course of that conflict. And until now, it remained one of the most modern examples of a nuclear-powered submarine seeking a surface combatant in wartime. So when defense experts say this strike is historically rare, it's really not an exaggeration. These kinds of naval engagements simply don't happen very often, but they do when you have the dedication and you have the modern technology, like our modern naval forces understand just how dangerous submarines are. If a submarine is nearby, you may never know it until it's too late. Secretary Hegseth described the attack in striking terms. He called it a quiet death. And in many ways, that's exactly how submarine warfare works. No warning, certainly no visible threat, but just a sudden explosion beneath the waterline. And then the ocean closes over the wreckage. I can't imagine what it was like for those sailors on that ship who knew that they were probably going to die and knew the ship was going to sink. For Iran, the loss of a modern frigate is very significant. Ships like the Iris Dena take years to build, cost millions and millions of dollars. They represent national prestige as much as military capability. Well, they're embarrassed over this one. Losing one in minutes sends a very powerful signal, but the larger strategic message may be aimed at Tehran itself. As tensions escalate, the United States Navy can reach Iranian assets far beyond the Persian Gulf, and American submarines can do it without ever being seen or heard. Now, how much did that cost? How much did that Mark 48 torpedo cost? You ready? Did anybody guess? You can still email me, text me. $4.2 million. $4.2 million for a single Mark 48 torpedo. Did you get it right? Before we move on from the topic of the war in Iran, and look, there's a whole lot. I could spend the whole show talking about it. There's been so much going on with that. But former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice had some interesting comments yesterday as she described the Trump administration's Operation Epic Fury as an attempt to neuter Iran's military power inside and beyond its borders, including its apparent ties to Hezbollah. Now, she was joining Special Report yesterday. She praised U.S.-Israeli joint strikes against Iran that killed the supreme leader, Ayatollah. And she emphasized the point that this operation does not mark the beginning of a new war, saying that Iran has been at war with us for at least 47 years. Here's her comments.
Well, the most important thing, Brett, and thank you for having me, but the most important thing is to recognize that Iran has been at war with us for at least 47 years, all the way from 1979. People may forget. They took our embassy hostage 444 days. They were responsible for the killings of 300 plus Marines in Lebanon in the early 1980s. And if you ask people about Iraq, what was the source of many of our casualties in Iraq, you'll get estimates as high as 75 or 80% of them were due to Iranian-made roadside bombs. And so they've been at war for us a long time. They also have developed the military capability to have reach outside of the boundaries of Iran, including Hezbollah and Hamas, which they both arm and equip and continue to arm and equip even after the events of the summer. And I myself negotiated 4 Security Council resolutions calling them a threat to international peace and security under Chapter 7. The strongest chapter of the UN Security Council resolutions because of their nuclear ambitions. So to say that this regime was not a threat, I think is simply not, it's ahistorical. They have been a threat for a long time.
And she's right. Ms. Rice, of course, served as National Security Advisor, Secretary of State under former President George W. Bush during 9/11 and the Iraq War. She said Iran has expanded military capability through its reach to international terrorist groups. 6 American service members, we have to remember this, have been killed. 20 Iranian ships have been struck or sunk during Operation Epic Fury, which has utilized more than 50,000 troops, 200 fighters, and 2 aircraft carriers, according to CENTCOM. The Trump administration has coordinated strikes with Israel, follow failed diplomatic efforts to negotiate Iran's nuclear program, which Iran refused to abandon. They had their own fate in their own hands, and they would not take action. They're not as good as their word. Ms. Rice said to say that the regime was not a threat is ahistorical. She's right. One goal of Operation Epic Fury, according to Ms. Rice, is to strip Iran of its military capabilities and the ability to coordinate with proxy groups like Hamas, like Hezbollah. The former Bush cabinet member said Iran now faces a complicated future and urged the Trump administration to capitalize on what she described as a moment of vulnerability. And she's right. We can't back out now. We're in this. We're in it to win it. And we can make the world a lot safer for many decades if we finish the job. And that's what we have to do. And that's why we have to show our support and stand behind President Trump to be sure that the woke left, the liberals, and hey, even some moderate Republicans don't somehow put pressure on him to stop this before it's finished. But by the way, there was a key victory too in the U.S. Senate when the Republicans were able to get the votes to block an effort by the Democrats to be able to stop President Trump and to strip his war powers away from him in this instance. So we'll see. But she's right in that we're in it, so we need to go ahead and finish it and make sure that Iran is not a threat to anybody for the rest of our lives and our children and grandchildren's lives. Moving on. Hey, if you've flown anywhere in the last few years, you know exactly what I'm about to talk about. You're 30,000 feet in the air. You're trying to relax, maybe get a little sleep, maybe watch a movie, and suddenly 3 rows back, someone's blasting TikTok videos or a movie out loud on their phone. Have you been in this situation? Well, United Airlines says the end. That's over. The airline has officially updated its passenger policy to make something crystal clear. If you're playing audio or video on a flight, you must use headphones. No discussion. And this isn't just a suggestion anymore. It's written directly into the United's contract of carriage, which is the legal agreement between the airline and the passengers. Now, you probably never read it, but every airline has a contract of carriage. It's the fine print on your ticket. In other words, if you ignore the rule and the crew ask you to do so and you continue to ignore it, you can be removed from the flight. United says the change comes as the airline expands their Starlink Wi-Fi service across its fleet. With faster internet, more passengers are streaming content on board, which means more opportunities for those dreaded loud phone moments. So the airline decided it was time to spell it out. Now, technically, airlines have always had the authority to deal with disruptive passengers and with passengers who do not do what they're asked to do. But putting headphone use into the contract gives flight attendants much clearer backing if someone refuses to cooperate. Etiquette experts say the move is long overdue, and it is. One travel etiquette specialist said, and this will resonate with a lot of frequent flyers, that some of the worst offenders are usually parents who hand kids a tablet without headphones, letting cartoons blast through the cabin. I've heard that before, too. And if you look online, travelers are overwhelmingly cheering the change. One passenger wrote that hearing someone's phone blasting on a plane would drive them absolutely insane. I can agree with that. Another frequent flyer said it happens on about 1/3 of their flights. And they're right. This is the times that I've seen this happen, it is typically with a child, a young child. And you're on this plane and it's noisy, and so the parents believe they have to turn it up so the child can hear it. Now, before anyone panics, the process isn't going to be immediate as far as punishment. Typically, a flight attendant will issue a warning first, telling the passenger to plug in headphones or stop the audio. If they refuse, then the crew has the authority to escalate the situation, including removal from the aircraft. And if that removal causes delays or costs the airline money, the passenger could even be required to pay those expenses. Now, that could get expensive. That could get very expensive. So for those who forgot their earbuds, United says it still offers basic wired headphones on board. They're free. And the message here is pretty simple. Pack your headphones, pack your manners. Because apparently in 2026, airlines are finally writing basic airplane etiquette into their rule book. And you got to believe if United's done this, Delta, American, all the others will follow suit very quickly. Hey, there's a quick development in the mystery surrounding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. We haven't talked much about this lately because there hadn't been anything to talk about. This, of course, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show anchor Samantha Guthrie. There was a lot of talk just recently about this glove that was found, and they were able to get some DNA off of it. Well, we now know whose glove that was. The DNA, according to authorities, belongs to a restaurant employee who works across the street from the home. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos says investigators had suspected all along that some of those gloves had nothing to do with the case. According to the sheriff, the employee likely discarded a glove after work and it ended up near the property where investigators were collecting evidence. In other words, that particular glove is another dead end. And they spent a lot of time, a lot of effort on it. I mean, we thought this might be the big break. Now, remember, detectives recovered multiple gloves in the area around Guthrie's $1 million home after she vanished on February the 1st. Those items were seized as evidence while investigators tried to determine whether any belonged to a potential suspect. The sheriff says DNA testing on others is more complicated because some samples appear to contain mixed genetic material, which can take much longer to analyze. Meanwhile, of course, the bigger question remains unanswered. What happened to Nancy Guthrie? She was last seen at her home the night of January 31st, reported missing the next day after she failed to show up for church. And as you know, it was front page headlines for weeks. Now, investigators have kind of pulled back, the media has pulled back, and it has to just be haunting for the Guthrie family to know that they may never realize what exactly happened to their mom. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On the text line, Jennifer says, hey, Joey, how can we keep up with our own lives? Miracle on Ice Part 2 on Sunday, followed by a historically powerful and patriotic State of the Union address last week, followed by the beginning of the war on Iran on Saturday. My head is spinning. Look, I understand exactly, Jennifer. Mine spins all the time. Thanks for the text. Texters, Joey, this is Dan from Greenville. I think they should ban balloons altogether in South Carolina because I get tired every time I go to Publix and take my daughter. She wants a balloon boom, so therefore they don't have balloons. Don't have to worry about it. Thanks. I feel your pain, Dan. Dom from Illinois. Hey, Joey, regarding the planned release of balloons into the atmosphere. Now, by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about here and why I've got so many of these text messages and emails, I talked about this week about balloons, and the South Carolina legislature is considering a bill that would ban the release of balloons because, and I'd never had thought about it, and boy, you educated me quickly. Those balloons, of course, go up, they got to come down. And it primarily was centered around turtles at the coast trying to eat the balloons, this rubber, and it kills them. But evidently, turtles aren't the only wildlife that will try to consume these balloons too, as many of you told me. But back to Dom's text here. He said, there was talk a while back about how balloons cause a threat to small aircraft as well as the environment. Because of those reasons, Illinois passed the following law. In Illinois, the legality of balloon releases is governed by specific regulations. 1, release limits. It is illegal to knowingly release or cause to be released into the atmosphere 25 or more helium or lighter than air gas balloons within a 24-hour period unless they are used for scientific or meteorological purposes or released indoors. He says recent changes as of April 1st, 2024, the intentional release of helium or lighter than air balloons is prohibited and sellers are required to disclose this ban at any point of the sale. Why would you sell them if you can't? Well, I guess some people may want them just to keep inside, but I would imagine a lot of them end up being released. But I got a lot of other emails too. Jen, Ryan, Rebecca, thank you all for emailing me. Ryan wrote, I fully support a ban on organized or any other intentional balloon release. I pull them out of our ponds and pastures every few months. A cow is curious and will attempt to eat them. That's an approximate $3,000 loss per cow that chokes to death on a balloon. I never even thought about a cow choking to death on a balloon. Ryan says, the comparison to other litter is a distraction. The majority of litter is along the roadside. Agricultural animals are not grazing along a roadside. Aquatic animals are not feeding along a roadside, but balloons land in pastures, waterways, and wetlands where those animals are feeding. People who release balloons don't see where that balloon lands, and most don't even realize the potential dangers it poses. Ryan, I didn't. I never, again, and I grew up around cows and horses and never thought about balloons, but I get it now. I get it. Understand it. Thanks to all of you who either text me or email me or left me a message on the MyPillow message line. Appreciate that. Faye writes on the text line, Joey, I'm watching the protests outside of the White House, and so many of these morons are women. They're everywhere except where they need to be, at home with their bratty children. And we wonder what has happened to our country. I appreciate your texts. They're always welcome. Emails are welcome too. joeyhudson.com. Hey, quick update. There's been a lot of confusion from taxpayers and accountants over how the big, beautiful bill is being applied in South Carolina, or in some cases not applied. Well, the South Carolina House is quickly moving a bill that lets filers use the tax deductions in this massive federal spending package that Congress passed last summer, but effective for this tax season only. I guess the idea is to put it into effect for now and then figure out if this is going to be long term. Now, just to kind of go back, when President Trump signed the bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, last July 4th, South Carolina seemed poised to be one of just 5 states where taxpayers would automatically also benefit on their state income taxes from changes to standard deductions. No taxes on overtime or tips, and increased breaks for people over the age of 65. That's because South Carolina usually sticks with the federal tax code. However, under a bill passed by the House last year and the Senate last week, that would no longer be the case. Starting with tax year 2026, for tax filings due in April 2027, that bill decouples from the federal tax code and lowers overall rates. Legislators say the legislation is a tax cut, though that depends on the particular filer and your situation. Now, the South Carolina Daily Gazette reports that the effort was about perception, as untethering would make state income tax rates reflect South Carolina's comparative low taxes instead of appearing as the highest in the Southeast. However, by not conforming to the major changes in federal taxes, legislators have made this tax season a headache for South Carolina taxpayers, and they're angry. They're not happy campers at all. And if you have already talked to your accountant or your tax preparer, you know what I'm talking about. I've never seen people so confused and upset about something like this, and particularly because we went into this tax period thinking it was going to be a good year. We're going to get some large refunds back, no tax on tips, all this stuff. And then you go to your tax preparer, and if you're in South Carolina, and you're told, well, hold on a minute, may not work for you this time. Well, as complaints escalate, the South Carolina House is passing a bill that would once more adopt the federal code as a starting point for state taxes. What began as a limited bill exempting taxes on bonuses and overtime, pre-filed a month before President Trump took office, was amended this week to simply adopt all IRS changes for 2025. And as you remember, the big, beautiful bill took effect retroactively. This state bill advanced from subcommittee to committee to the House floor in one day, and it picks up all the federal changes, but only for tax filings due in a month. Representative Stephen Long from Boiling Springs, Republican, said, this is what the people of South Carolina want, and he's right. People are having a hard time filing their taxes. He's among legislators, along with Ways and Means Chairman Bruce Bannister, who have heard from lots and lots of folks, they say, who want to conform to the One Big Beautiful Bill. And it's easy to understand why that's the case and why it's confusing, because this is what we expected. We never thought that there'd be some state tax loophole or something that would prevent that from happening. Look, I've heard from a lot of people. I've talked to several accountants saying that filers are confused over how much they owe or frustrated over smaller tax breaks than they anticipated. And the accountants are having a hard time explaining it. We've heard from accountants who want some certainty on how to file their taxes and do the refunds correctly, Representative Bannister said. He went on to say, and we've heard from a lot of tax professionals who say, listen, we need to know one way or the other. Y'all are going to do it or you're not going to do it. Meaning, hey, we're going into the tax filing season. We can't wait around on y'all later in the session to do something about this. So, looks like you're going to get some relief after all.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.